The Supreme Court recently issued rulings revising the country's party list system and stopped the Commission on Elections' airtime limits of candidates' political advertisements. Joining us in the studio is election lawyer and constitutionalist attorney Vincent Yambao to shed light on these issues and how these may affect the upcoming midterm elections. Attorney Yambao, good morning.
Good morning, Jing. Good morning, Atty.
Party list, the ruling on the party list by the Supreme Court does that make sense? The Commission on Elections says the Supreme Court went against them, but does that make sense?
I have to make some disclosures now.
Go ahead, please.
Personally, I would have wanted that the party list would be limited to the marginalized sector.
Okay.
But as a student of law, student of the Constitution,
Yeah.
I do acknowledge that the constitutional intent is really to open up the party list not only to the marginalized sectors, but to all national, regional, and sectoral parties and organizations. So the latest Supreme Court ruling actually makes sense when you look into the whole provision of the Constitution relating not only to the section of the party list, but also to the intent to open up and provide avenue for the development of multi-party system. So, plus the provision on social justice, you see that it makes sense. This new Supreme Court decision actually takes into consideration not only that particular portion, but also the other portions of the Constitution. So
What is the spirit of party list?
I think the real intent of the party list is to provide avenue for representation. That's
Okay.
number one. The alternative route to have a representation in Congress, the traditional route is through district elections. And the Senate, of course, for the national. And you provide alternative route. And the question is, who will have that pass that route? That's the question.
Who will make use of that alternative path?
Yes.
Huh? People talk about sectoral representation
Yes.
or proportional
Representation.
representation. What's the difference?
The sectoral representation limits that path or that avenue to particular sectors. So you have district representative voted by people in the district, the electors in the district, and your sectoral representative voted by people in general for particular sectors. So you limit this avenue to certain sectors, women, youth,
And proportional
farmers,
representation is?
Proportional representation, actually, you can have both sectoral plus traditional parties, but the concept is really not to limit that to particular sectors, but to acknowledge that there are political parties, traditional political parties, other non-traditional political parties, or sectoral organizations that would have some constituency nationally, but cannot compete one-on-one in a district level. So you provide them some avenue. For instance, assuming we have a dominant two-party system, a third party, assuming Party A, Party B, Party C. In all district elections, it's always Party A, Party B, Party C who will compete. So when the end result might be the 250 representatives will be from Party A, 250 representatives will be from Party B, but none from Party C. So you can have Party C representation in Congress through the party list when you take into consideration the total votes that they get. So that's the proportional representation, meaning Party C has constituency nationally, but they will not have representation in Congress when you have one-on-one elections.
But the question is, what are they representing? Or who are they representing? If they're representing ideology, then at this point it's very difficult to assess because all the parties say the same things. No? Quality education, jobs, food on the table for everyone. No? So what's the difference? What kind of representation are we talking about?
That's also one of the things that you have to look at now. But parties C, meantime, the unfortunate fact is that we don't have that mature political party system.
Correct.
But there are avenues, for example, the progressive left, Bayan Muna, Akbayan, diba? San Lakas. There are political parties, in a sense, they're pushing for their party is based on ideology. They're pushing for a particular political platform of government. They're political parties.
Okay, are we strengthening political parties, whatever they may be, and are we weakening the representation of the marginalized sectors?
When you are a political party,
Yeah.
you're supposed to represent an ideology, and you're supposed to represent some sectors of
But
society.
that's not happening, no? So with party lists, there are party lists that represent a particular marginalized group. What is the fate of that philosophy going to be, or that concept?
The whole framework of elections, that ultimately is the people that will decide.
Okay.
So you just have to provide avenue for these particular these sectors, for instance, the underrepresented sectors to compete. And the Constitution, by providing reserved seats for 3 terms, reserved in meaning only these sectors can participate in the first 3 party list elections, would have attained, theoretically, its objective of strengthening the marginalized. And I think there are some progress there. You have Bayan Munas, which is very vibrant. You have Akbayan, which is very vibrant. And now I think San Lakas is coming back this election. They did not participate, I think, last election. So you have these 3 major political parties representing the spectrum of the left, participating in this exercise. And I think these parties have fighting chances. And you have Gabriela, the women's wing of this organization. You have other Kabataan party list. They're very vibrant organizations. And I think the people would appreciate if they, in fact, did what they're supposed to do during their terms. No? And I think the people will appreciate that. So the fear that they might be drawn out when the traditional political parties would enter into the party system, I think that's best to the people to decide. No? My framework is that I'm operating on a particular framework, in that the regulation in elections should be to the point that you have provide access. You don't restrict.
Okay, so no prior restraint.
No prior restraint. You don't restrict.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question. I'm going to ask you to comment on Chairman Brillantes' statement. He said that the Supreme Court is running the elections, not the Commission on Elections. Just a reaction.
That's unfortunate but true. I feel for Chairman Brillantes. I think Chairman Brillantes is the only person now in this country with the gravitas to really effect reform in the Commission on Elections. I feel for him because I think, for one, the party list system, brouhaha, is not the problem of COMELEC. It's the Congress's problem because it crafted a very poorly crafted legislation law. And of course, the Supreme Court, which keeps on flip-flopping on this issue. On the issue of for instance, the airtime.
Yeah.
It's very clear in the law. It's 120 television. Yeah. The COMELEC is only implementing the law. So if there's a problem there, it's the legislation, not the COMELEC. But as a constitutional, from the constitutional standpoint, of course, you will be challenging the regulation promulgated by the COMELEC. Yeah. But in fact, you're actually challenging the law, not the law.
Okay.
So I feel for Chairman Brillantes. I think he's sincere in his efforts. Some of these problems are not the problems of COMELEC. Should have been by legislation. And our problem, because we sort of threw all these issues very near the elections. We could have talked about this 3-5 years ago, and then we're talking about this now.
Okay, Attorney Yambao, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for coming to the studio.
Okay.